solitary woodcutter spent $2 to wed a woman with a bag over her face at a bidding, tying the knot when she revealed her name. Oregon region, springtime of 1869. A weathered settlement on the Oregon Trail, heavy with the aroma of parched wood, equine perspiration, and pipe smoke. Surrounding a crude bidding platform, mere boards fastened to cart crates, a throng of men assembles. Calloused palms, weary gazes, yearning spirits, and empty souls converge in a place where even virtue passes by. A man in a worn azure vest, sporting a tarnished deputy pin, pounds a wooden mallet against a post. "All right, final lot today," he roars. She's nameless, faceless, head covered since Missouri. Claims she can labor, vows to comply. Opening bid, $2. Who's bold or tipsy enough to wed the enigma? Laughter cracks like a lash. Maybe a sorceress hides under there, one man yells. Or a cadaver, another jests. Might as well marry the blasted bag. Some men spit into the dust and depart, others linger, jostling, awaiting a fool to lift a hand. On the wooden stage, she stands motionless, barefoot, dusty, wrists tied with frayed rope. The coarse fabric over her head, stained and oversized, is knotted tightly at her throat. Only her breathing, rapid, shallow, barely restrained, hints at her dread. Her fingers quiver, clench, relax. She's useless if she won't talk, the auctioneer mutters. No one advances for a long moment. Then the crowd parts like a stream. From the rear, a tall figure strides forward, broad-shouldered in a canvas jacket, his face shadowed by a worn black hat. Mud cakes his boots, his shirt is sweat-stained, and his axe handle is bound in leather. A man more akin to trees than people. $2, he declares. Silence falls like frost. The auctioneer narrows his eyes. "You certain, sir?" "I said what I meant," he replies, voice low, not heated or eager, just resolute. A few men chuckle. "Must be starved for company," one says. The auctioneer clears his throat, uneasy. "You don't want to see what you're getting." The man tilts his head toward the woman, still statue-like under the bag. "I'm not purchasing a face," he says softly. "I'm wedding a soul." The wind itself pauses. No one laughs now. "Name?" The auctioneer grumbles. "Silas Boone, lumberman, Northridge." The auctioneer jots it down. "Fine. Let it be recorded. Mr. Silas Boone, of Oregon, has entered a lawful marriage under God and this assembly's witness." He thrusts the paper at Silas, who signs without hesitation. Turning to the woman, he says, "You're wed now, miss. State your name for the record." The bag shifts faintly. Silence at first, then a whisper, so soft it demands a lean to catch. "Annabelle Crow." Silas stiffens. The crowd edges closer. The auctioneer raises a brow but stays mute. Silas's eyes widen briefly, then narrow, fixed on the bag, on the voice now echoing in his mind from 3 winters past, in snow, in darkness, a voice he never forgot, a name he never knew until now. Suddenly, the forest's quiet, the bloodied snow, the firelight in that icy cave rush back. He steps off the platform deliberately, takes the woman's arm, not harshly, not hurriedly, just firmly enough to say, "You're safe." No one halts them as they leave. Not a sound from the crowd, only the creak of boots on wood and the murmur of a name trembling between them. Annabelle Crow. The forest enveloped them as they walked, the path narrowing to a line of snapped pine needles and packed soil. Light dimmed under the canopy, sun straining through dense branches, hesitant to draw near. Annabelle said nothing, the sackcloth still veiling her face, tied snug at her neck, its edges fluttering in the evening breeze. Once, a gust tugged it sideways, she swiftly adjusted it, keeping her face concealed. Silas walked several steps ahead, guiding an old mule carrying their scant supplies from the outpost. He didn't look back or speak, merely kept to the trail, occasionally glancing at the trees, as if attuned to more than the wind. Their silence wasn't uneasy, it was forged from distinct survivals. They reached the cabin before twilight, built of dark pine, modest but sturdy, nestled against a rise shielding it from the north wind. A stone chimney stood proud, a woodpile by the door, a rusted horseshoe nailed above the frame. Silas opened the creaking door and stepped aside. "You choose where you stand," he said softly. "No one's placing you anymore." Annabelle entered cautiously, her steps sure but silent on the polished floor. She didn't remove the sack, didn't sit at the table, but crouched against the far wall, back to the room, hands on her knees, mute. Silas followed, set firewood by the hearth, and tended the stove without questions or orders, only the clink of iron or the bubble of boiling water. A warm, rich scent grew, spiced, with a hint of cinnamon and smoked meat. He worked methodically, as if he'd done this countless times. Annabelle didn't stir. When the meal was ready, Silas placed a wooden bowl near her. She flinched slightly but didn't turn. He sat at the table with his own bowl, neither rushing nor staring. After a moment, her muffled voice came. "What's this?" Silas stirred his bowl. "I call it the dish for the last one standing." A pause, then a faint, stifled laugh. He continued, "Made it for myself after long days in the woods. Then I started making two, even when no one was there for the second." She turned slightly, glancing from under the sack's hem. On the chair beside him sat another bowl, steam rising, identical, though no one else was present. Silas nodded toward it. "Used to set it for my wife after the war, when the trees took more than they gave. A way to say I came back alive. Now it's for you. And her." Silence held. The fire snapped. Annabelle reached for her bowl slowly, hands trembling faintly, gripping the spoon and eating carefully under the sackcloth. She finished every bite. That night, as Silas washed the bowls in a tin basin by the stove, Annabelle stayed by the wall, knees drawn up, watching silently. For the first time, she wasn't trembling. That night, with the fire reduced to a steady glow, Silas sat alone by the hearth, no lantern lit, the firelight's dance on the log walls enough. Outside, the wind sighed through the trees, low and familiar. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, the warmth brushing his face, though it wasn't just warmth he felt. 3 years ago, a brutal winter had gripped the land, turning pine needles to glass and breath to fire. He'd ventured too far north for timber, prideful, greedy, and slipped on a slope, twisting his leg, collapsing into a snowbank off any trail. As snow buried him, he'd stopped fighting. Then, rough hands dragged him, pain jolting as his body scraped rock, then darkness. He woke to a fire in a small cave behind an icy curtain, the air thick with the bitter scent of boiled bark. Across from him sat a figure, a woman, her face hidden under sackcloth just like now. She wore patched wool and leather, boots stitched from scraps. Her hands moved precisely, pouring steaming liquid into a tin cup. Her voice, soft, measured, weary, said, "You don't need to know me, but I won't let you die." He tried to speak, but words failed. "Drink," she urged. "Pine bark and lichen. It'll ease the fever." He drank, bitter as it was. She'd bound his leg, warmed it with hot stones, kept the fire alive through the night. He drifted in and out, battling cold, pain, and dreams. By morning, she was gone, leaving only a low fire and a folded cloth, embroidered with uneven purple flowers, no larger than a palm, a token, perhaps a message. He kept it in his coat pocket. Now, in the cabin, a woman with that same voice, same quiet hands, same sackcloth sat behind him, named Annabelle Crow. He closed his eyes, leaning into the fire. He didn't need proof. He'd known when she spoke at the auction. Not the name, the sound. The woman who saved him hadn't wanted to be seen or known. Now she was here, still hidden, still nameless to the world, but not to him. He didn't tell her that night, letting the memory live in him, a quiet bond between past and present. Glancing back at the small figure by the wall, sack still on, back turned, he saw the same fear, the same need to vanish. But this time, he thought, she wasn't alone. That was the beginning of something beyond snow. The forest held its breath at dawn. Mist hugged the roots, curling like timid secrets. A gentle breeze sighed through the needles above, slow, reluctant to disturb. Annabelle stepped outside alone, arms crossed, moving toward a towering pine at the clearing's edge. The sack still covered her face, but her steps were steadier, her spine less bowed, not proud but no longer broken. She sat at the tree's base, turning slightly toward the sun's rays piercing the branches. With trembling hands, she loosened the knot at her neck. The sack slid up just enough to let her breathe freely, revealing her mouth, nose, a sliver of cheek, not defiance, but a start. Silas watched from the side yard, kneeling by a basin, oiling his saw's teeth. He didn't rise or call out, but after a moment, he spoke low, as if to the trees. "I got hurt once, deep winter, lost near Black Ridge. Should have died." His fingers worked the blade. "Someone found me, dragged me to a cave, saved me. Wore a sack, wouldn't say her name, barely showed her hands. But I remember her voice." He turned slightly, not facing her, letting his words carry. "Yours sounds like hers." A stillness followed, then the soft rustle of fabric on skin. He stayed still, even as he felt her gaze. When he looked up, she stared at him, the sack in her lap. Her face wasn't monstrous, just human, marked by a deep, curved scar from temple to jaw, not fresh, but permanent, as if cruel fingers had tried to tear something from her. She met his eyes, bare, not proud. "The boarding house man said I could keep my room if I gave more," she whispered. "I said no." He didn't like it. She swallowed, looking down, then back. "He attacked. I fought, pushed him. He fell, hit the stove, died. I ran. Silas's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. They said I planned it, lured him. No one believed me. Her voice wavered. No witnesses. She looked at her hands. They called me a liar, a seductress, a murderer. Silas stood, wiping his hands. Annabelle continued, voice steady. They sold me to settle his debts, passed me like livestock. The sack made it easier, made me nothing. She glanced at the fabric. I wore it so they wouldn't see the scar and judge me before I spoke. Her eyes, glassy but fierce, met his. I didn't ask to be saved or bought, but I'm tired of hiding. Silas didn't approach or touch her, just nodded. Thank you for telling me, he said, voice warm. You didn't have to. She blinked hard, no tears falling, just breath. Something shifted. She was no longer a shadow, but a woman with a name, a story, a face. And Silas saw it all, unflinching. The next morning, sunlight crept through the forest, golden and tentative, spilling through the cabin's narrow window. Dust motes danced in the beam, blessing the quiet. The air held a hush, not of fear, but of fragile understanding. Annabelle had barely spoken since yesterday but hadn't reached for the sack. She no longer pulled it over her head at night or kept it by her bed like a shield. Her hair, tangled from sleep, rested on her shoulders as she rose from the cot, steps cautious but less guarded. She approached the table, expecting coffee, the usual bowl, the spoon. Instead, she froze. A small, silver-framed mirror, edges aged but polished, stood propped against a pine wedge, catching the sunrise to illuminate, not expose. Beside it, a sea-green silk scarf, faded but soft, folded with care, as if once cherished. No note, no gesture, just the mirror and scarf, as if they belonged there, as if she did. Annabelle stared, unmoving. The fire in the stove was low, the room filled only with the crackle of pine and the creak of beams. Outside, a jay rustled, dew dripped. She approached the table slowly, as if the mirror might show something unbearable. But she looked. She knew the scar's ridges, its path down her cheek like an unasked brand. Her hand rose, touching it lightly, like a name carved in stone. This time, in the sun's light through clear glass, she didn't flinch. The scar remained, but so did the woman behind it. Her gaze shifted to the scarf, lifting it like river water, cool, gentle, kind. Care was woven into its fibers. She draped it over her head, not to hide, but to shape her image, not from shame, but choice. The scarf settled like it belonged. In the mirror, a new figure emerged. Not the hunted girl, not the snowstorm ghost, but a woman, upright, carrying her past but no longer buried. Soft boots sounded on the floor. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. Silas leaned in the doorway, watching with quiet reverence. That was my wife's, he said, voice steady. She wore it to feel like herself. I thought it might suit you. Annabelle's fingers brushed the silk. She turned slightly, meeting his unwavering gaze. Anyone who shames you for what you've survived is blind, he said softly. And the blind don't judge beauty. Her throat tightened. Tears came, warm, cleansing. She looked at the mirror, laid her palm against it, meeting her reflection. For the first time in years, Annabelle Crow let herself be seen. Their peace in the woods didn't last unchallenged. Trouble rode in on horseback, under a storm-bruised sky. The man, lean and long-legged, his duster torn by harsh miles, had gray, merciless eyes that cut through the saloon crowd. Called himself Cutter, a bounty hunter who read tracks like gospel and sniffed out secrets. Rumors spoke of a scarred girl hiding in the hills, once veiled, now revealed, with blood on her hands and a woodcutter's protection. Cutter listened, then rode. At the North Ridge logging post, he asked too many questions, posing as a lost traveler seeking timber work, mentioning a man named Boone. Silas met him by chance near the supply shed, knowing instantly, not from words, but from Cutter's snake-like stillness. That evening, Silas returned to the cabin, face colder than the wind. He's hunting you, he said. Annabelle stood by the stove, stirring thin soup, eyes distant. She crossed to a chest, pulled out the sackcloth, untouched since she'd shed it. I'll wear it again, she said. One last time. Silas met her gaze. You don't have to. This time, I choose it, she replied. Not shame, strategy. They planned that night. Annabelle would ride east on the fire road, sack on, luring Cutter. Silas would take the mountain pass, meet the sheriff in town. At dawn, Annabelle rode out, sack tied, heart pounding but steady. By sundown, Cutter followed her into the eastern rocks, where Silas, the sheriff, and 2 Ridge patrolmen waited. Cutter drew first but was outmatched, disarmed, bound, and charged with unlawful pursuit. Annabelle watched from a hilltop, still veiled. When Cutter was gone, she rode down, let Silas help her dismount, and untied the sack. She folded it, staring at it. It saved me one last time, she said. Not by hiding me, but because I used it. Silas nodded. What now? She looked at the trees, the fading trail. I'll keep it, she said. Not a cage, but proof. Proof of what? He asked. She smiled. That even my prison can be my shield, if I choose. One afternoon, a hesitant knock came, not demanding, but asking. Silas opened the door to a woman in a travel-worn dress, boots red with dust. Her skin was dark, her posture straight, eyes cautious but kind. Mavis Green, she said, worked at Ridley House, cooking. Annabel froze in the doorway. Mavis stepped back, then held. Heard you were here, she said. Time I stopped being a coward. Silence stretched as wind rustled the pines. I saw that night, Mavis said. Saw him drag you to the back room, heard the scream, the crash. I didn't speak up. Needed the job, needed to eat. Annabel gripped the doorframe. I'm not proud, Mavis said, but I can make it right, if you'll let me. Over tea, Mavis recounted details only a witness could know, bruises, blood, silence. I should have spoken then, she whispered. I will now. You told the truth. With Silas's help, they wrote an affidavit, Mavis signing carefully. It was sent to the judicial office. Weeks passed, the forest greened, the sky warm. One morning, the sheriff arrived with an envelope. Silas read it twice, then handed it to Annabel. Charges dropped, case closed, warrant rescinded. She read it repeatedly, then walked to the old pine, sat at its base, and breathed. For the first time, she whispered, I don't have to run. Justice came quietly, with truth and one person's courage to stand by it. Spring softened the ridge. Trees budded, mist lightened, birds sang, the river flowed with purpose. Silas built a modest canopy near the cabin, for beams draped in linen, simple but strong. They invited few, Mavis, in a mismatched dress, the blacksmith with apple brandy, the shopkeeper's wife with bread and lavender. Inside, Annabel stood before the mirror, in hand-stitched muslin, cream-colored, perfect because she'd made it. Her veil was the sackcloth, washed, sun-dried, edges sewn with white thread, embroidered with purple flowers like the handkerchief from the snow. As she stepped out, the forest stilled. Silas, under the arch, beard trimmed, boots polished, saw her and nothing else mattered. She was beautiful, not because the veil hid her scar, but because she chose it. He took her hands. No matter what covered you, he said, you were always my choice. He paused. Now, I vow to stand by you to the end. Annabel smiled, healed, not cautious. I vow the same, she whispered. No priest, just them, the trees, and those who mattered. Their kiss, soft and sure, met a gentle rain. Mavis whispered to the blacksmith, never thought a sack could be a veil. He chuckled. Ain't the sack, it's what she made it. That evening, by the fire, Annabel sat with Silas, the veil in her lap. This used to be my fear, she said. Now? He asked. Now it's what I chose. He laced his fingers with hers. They sat until the stars shone, the forest no longer a prison but a home. Their love didn't erase the scars but turned what bound them into a blessing. In the Wild West, survival was about choosing what to hold. Thank you for joining this tale of redemption, bravery, and quiet love. If stories like this stir you, subscribe to Wild West Love Stories, where love outrides fear, and rough paths lead home. Tap the bell for the next tale. Ride steady, love deep, and know, where bullets missed, hearts hit true.